directly. Hey, the recording. Cool. Nice. So I know that you have had some discussions on the last session, which I didn't attend due to my day off, about the capacity for the UX research and communicating that to the PMs. So yeah, curious, like, so you guys moved this topic to this session. What were some of the outcomes? Like, where did you finish? You know, what was discussed basically there?
Was a pretty long discussion, I think. I think there's like multiple views and there's like different like perspectives on how we should manage these. So I don't think we reached to like a concrete conclusion besides like, yes, we need to communicate our capacity to our PMs and we need to find a good way to do that. But I don't think we reached like a very like concrete conclusion. And I think there were still thoughts like regarding these. So that's why we moved it here to kind of like conclude that conversation.
Any ideas like on where to start? I'm curious, like, how do you do this? How do you guys do this at the stages today at your stage groups?
I thought more about it. I definitely kind of like was more mindful about it this week with my PMs to see how I was communicating my capacity. And I realized that maybe I don't have like mechanisms to like report that capacity to them, like at least not like until we meet and like we say, like we go through like the backlog and the roadmap and there's like, okay, I can do this, I can do that. But yeah, so I realized that maybe there's something missing, which is kind of like a more like better visibility of my situation is a little bit different because I have two PMs, two groups. So like I think it's very important for them to see like how like things are like how one thing works on one of my groups, so they can like plan against my work there. But still, I think there's like an opportunity there to like be more like communicate more, you know, like I don't know if it's like maybe, you know, like sharing with them like a board in Slack with all my issues, you know, maybe that could be something so they can just go and look into that like asynchronously. That's an idea that I had. Or maybe just like kind of like telling them like at the beginning of the week, this is what I'm doing this week. I'm at full capacity. Expect me not to be available to work on this stuff. Like be more proactive. That's what I thought. But like those were the thoughts that I have that I was having this week. I don't know who else.
I see Dimitri is also suggesting like the board. Dimitri, what are your thoughts here? You play some comments.
Yeah, I was just having a discussion with Tao and both engineering managers of CI about basically creating more visibility in what is being done per milestone. And then we eventually got to the point where there was a little section in the issue she's thinking of creating that displays design priorities or design responsibilities. And what I said to her back then was like, hey, we need to make sure that we are not, putting the design responsibilities within a time box of a milestone, because that it doesn't fit in there. Some design efforts might fit in 2 weeks, while others fit in 1.5 month, right? And with that, we got to the discussion back to this Kanban style of working, and that kind of falls in line with the validation tracking board, which I've been discussing in I think the UX Weekly once upon a time, like a few weeks ago. And I was wondering if others already apply this. So the idea is that you have your columns of problem validation, you got your design and workflow solution validation. And instead of filtering down per milestone, we filter down on your as an assignee. So I filter down on continuous integration and the author, me, Dimitri, and then I see my issues within those issues, within those columns. And if one moves to the next, or one moves to planning breakdown or scheduling, whatever, it means that a spot has opened up to some extent. That is a simplified way of looking at it, because we don't individually weight issues, and I'd say our process on that is a little bit different than engineering, but it's like it kind of visualizes in a way, hey, what is the weight, or what is the current effort of design at this very moment? And if something changes, then let's review this, for example, weekly, and say like, hey, did things change versus last week? Hey, something did change, the spot opened up. Does this mean you can add in a new issue? Because if so, then let's already do that and work ahead. That is the idea, at least.
Ian, how are you doing that with Tim?
We took a little bit of a different approach. We have a very similar like Kanban setup where there's the solution validation, the design phase, the problem validation, working backwards. We try to coordinate and make sure that every milestone has like some sort of research effort happening, and then kind of look at the board and communicate about where we should focus it. So it tends to be, here's a bunch of stuff, and then this is the time slot we'll add it. And then I just kind of have a commitment of making sure each thing can kind of be done in a time range. And it flexes and wanes. So I try to keep it into milestones, but I try to reflect like the solution validation is a research effort. So it takes a little longer than maybe the actual design phase might. So I'll try to pair it and prep for the solution validation in the next one. So I think I manage my own time, and then report it back to Tim, I think is the way I would explain it. So it's a lot more, I kind of just jump in and say, this is the research that we're doing based on what's in design and solution validation right now.
Do you have any limit of items that you pick?
I'm sorry?
Do you have any limit of items that you pick?
I try to make sure there's just one research effort happening in a milestone. The backlog is usually emptier on my side than it is on Tim's, just because it goes through the cycle so quickly once it hits design and the solution validation. We're working on figuring that out. One of the things we're going to do to try to do that is 12.7, I'm going to do product validation and let Tim have an extra milestone to get things through problem validation.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that Tim does all the problem validation, and you specify or do the solution validation? We defined it as problem validation is Tim's responsibility. He's the DRI, and for solution validation, I'm the DRI, but we try to partner and make sure that our research efforts are aligned, and I get involved in the problem validation so I can understand it and gather the information I need, and he sees solution validation, it goes through. So it's a partnership, but we have a DRA for each side. So
does that answer your question?
Is he with that contributing to the UX research insights repository from the research that he does or that you partner on?
He better be.
Problem validation?
He better be, but Dimitri, that's a great point. I actually just discussed this with somebody else, the research team. I need to go back to all of our product managers and make sure they understand what the process is. I don't think that they do. But they will be required to write those insights just like we all are writing those insights to put them in the repo. Otherwise, the research that they do, it's not usable by anybody else but themselves. And so that kind of sucks. And that includes not just the problem validation, any customer interaction that they have, they should be documenting what they learn in the repo. So good question.
So to answer from what we've been doing, Dimitri, is he actually ran the problem validation sessions and recorded them all. And then I went through and synthesized them. And that's how we partnered on it. So then we were both able to speak to it. So we were both involved in creating the insights. I think moving forward, we might have a discussion because the insights can kind of take a while of splitting that effort a little bit more. So as the DRI, he would be the person doing those insights. And when it's me, it's my insights. We're still work in progress, new team and all that.
And it's a new insight process too. Like I've never done it this way either. I've just been writing like 45-page PowerPoint reports, other places that I've been. And if we don't put them in, if we don't break them down and put them into the repo, what will happen is what happened to me the other day. Hey, does anybody know if we ever did any research on XYZ? I don't know. Have you checked the repo? Because what's happened to me in the past is I have to go through all my old reports and see if we did do research on X, Y, and Z and what did we learn. So the repo is supposed to enable self-service for the insights, but we have to continue to feed the repo.
Mike, curious, what are your experiences there with ORIT and the way you did the research before? How does this work?
I mean, I think for us, it's not much different than anything else in the sense that we kind of talk about everything that needs to be accomplished. And we are also moving to the Kanban style of world, which will give us a new board, planning board, where most of this activity can happen and we can track it there. Currently, it is happening on the milestones boards, which is a little confusing because it really has nothing to do with the milestone. It's really more focused on upcoming milestones. But really, no, I mean, we just kind of talk about what we need to accomplish from a design side, from a research side, from a development side. It's all kind of just a continuous conversation because obviously the more research we do, I mean, unless Lori is available to help us out, like the more research we do, the less design we do. So it's all kind of moving target of what we need to accomplish and when we want to accomplish it.
I see. Nice. Yeah, it sounds like everyone is figuring out the way to do it. Kind of like the way of like just like kind of like setting an average. We pick one research topic per milestone. I think that's kind of, this is the maximum I feel like we can do with all of the work, design work that we need to be done, and that's kind of like sets these expectations, and we also have to be planning for that. We've been earlier with Lori and I forgot which PM was that. Oh my God.
Tao. It was Tao.
Tao, yeah, thanks. I had so much calls as well today. Discussing that it's nice to plan out those things a bit earlier, like, you know, kind of like, okay, what are those things that we're going to be looking in 1 or 2 milestones, just to give everyone the heads up, because I think PMs should be able to do that, to plan for that.
That's one of the things that Tim and I have been trying to focus on, is we try to partner with Lori, and we have a goal that Lori knows not only what research we're doing right now, what research we want to do next one, but at least the general thoughts of 3 milestones out, fully recognizing that that's a long period of time and things change. But we try to make sure that Tim and I are on the same page in terms of what we want, and our moment of truth, if you will, is when we kind of rope, here we go, Lori into the conversation and make sure that she's on the same page with us. It's kind of helps all of us, because then it is, Lori can say, this is a really easy initiative, maybe it needs less time and we can work it here, or this is a big one, like you're going to need to stretch here, before we're in the milestone where it starts.
A question, actually, this is super interesting, because so Ian, maybe I would like you to have a look into this issue later, and I want to have a team to go and look there as well, because so I made this like a graph model, like illustration, where I'm trying to visualize the timelines for the research to be done, kind of like to get on the same page, because I feel like we're talking a lot about the timelines within the stages. And there was some feedback that, and I've said that the discovery stage, I suggested that can happen 2 milestones ahead, or 2-1, I don't remember. And that sounded like too much for people. And there were a few comments that if we do, if we plan a research 2-3 milestones ahead, doesn't it become obsolete until the actual development time will come? Like, what's your experience there? Ian, that was you.
All right. I wasn't sure if that was me or not, and I didn't want to step on any toes. I think as long as Tim and I have like very clear communication and conversation about like if things are fluxing and changing, and it's also, we have the belief that the more research we do up front, the faster everything else is going to go for us, and the more likely it is to be successful. I can speak to that now. The solution validation we're doing, because we did such thorough problem validation, I've been getting consistent, like, this is exactly what we wanted, this is what we needed, and every designer loves that moment when it happens. And so because we have that, and then we try to make sure the research is big enough that it could be a couple milestones of work. So we were doing additional GitLab metadata and it took me a milestone to put the design together and test it, and then a milestone to test it. But there's 3 or 4 milestones of engineering work that will go behind those changes. So we've been trying to pull the levers of scale of the research and understanding and those kinds of things to try to get that as far out so that it is workable, right? So we don't have engineers that just have nothing to do, which is the scare, I think.
I see. Awesome. I may wanna like follow up with you a little bit later on offline, so don't take people's time. But yeah, I think this is kind of like useful, I think, for us to see what others doing in the other stage groups. So I suggest maybe we'll like check in a few weeks on this again and see how's everyone going. But yeah, I guess like what I can suggest is let's exchange some experiences to make sure that, you know, like we learn from each other. And if anything useful will come out of this graph, I will keep everyone posted on the progress. Does anyone has to add anything to this topic, or should we move on to the next one? Sounds like we can move on. Okay, cool. Mike, I've seen that you pointed this one out from about the CI/CD testing project that I created. Great question. Thanks for asking that. So let me give you a little bit of a history heads up for 30 seconds, and then feel free to ask me this question. I created this project. Basically, I created the CI/CD UX team group. Is it group? Yeah, group. For us to to discuss some internal team process, like for example our design reviews or like this engagement survey results, whatever will come up in the future. So it's like only dedicated to our team. And also I created one of this CI/CD testing project. And exactly, Mike, like my goal for that was to put some data in there that we as a team, as a product designers, we could be going there and using that part of the product to test the features, play with some functionalities, and learn the product maybe better. So that was my initial goal. Does it
Yeah.
sound?
Yeah, no, and I think we chatted about this a little bit in Slack the other day. I think that's a fantastic thing because I mean, there's really no way to do that unless you set up your own personal thing or GDK kind of situation. And then there's always that, like, you gotta somehow connect it to, especially for us, a lot of things. You gotta hook up Kubernetes to something, right? Usually GKA before you can like really test out some of the edge cases. So I think having this project is a fantastic thing, and I know when I started here, this didn't exist, so I just went and created my own and fooled around with it. But then eventually I ran out of like the $300 credit or whatever. Yeah. I had used that up, so and then I didn't have this anymore. I've since gotten access to there's a demo GKE thing that we have. A few of us have admin access to, so it might be a great thing to hook up to this and be able to use for testing and stuff like that.
Thanks.
This is an awesome idea. I definitely think that this is so needed. Like I also have the same problems with Kubernetes that I have to connect something, and like what I was gonna do was expense. Like I create like a micro instance in Google Cloud and then like probably expense that. But if there's a way to like avoid all that and just have a project that not only has Kubernetes already like installed and everything, like but also like if we can create a project that actually has like a lot of like demo jobs running and like it has like a complex pipeline running, so we can go and like see all this functionality and test against that, like something that it's simple for us to go and like make a push and like see the things running, but that it's complex enough that we can see all the pieces moving, right? I think that would be ideal.
Yeah, this is my goal exactly. I remember my days at Xebia Labs where, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say that in that recording. I really needed something like that, but I was close to the engineer, so I could come and say, hey, you make me an instance, and then I would be going nuts and testing the hell out of it. Yeah, so I will be checking on that. I reached out in the to the PMs to see what they're using. I'm kind of like collecting information, seeing how people are doing that. If anyone has any useful resources, thanks Dimitri for putting those in. I'll check those out, and I'll see. I'll be keeping you posted on that.
I can also look into like exploring like a demo configuration. Like I can like spend some time like trying to see what's something that like creates like several stages, and then like it's simple for us just to maybe, I don't know, I'm like brainstorming right now in my head, but I think like I can read a little bit about that and see what I come up with too.
Yeah, so please take this into account that I am in progress on this. So if anyone wants to pair up to give me some input, free, because you guys are obviously longer than me here. I probably have more knowledge already on this. So yeah. Dimitri, you're saying something. I have often reached out in Slack to ask if there was an example available.
Yeah, so I've been reaching out in the previously the CI/CD channel in Slack. But we also might want to think about, you know, perhaps like a process that we can ask developers for such things, and we can assign it, get the thing set up, and then we, you know, we're able to test it out. It kind of like it's either like we have the catch-all strategy, and you're always going to have that moment that, you know, that one example you specifically need is not available, so you end up in the same position anyway. I think, you know, a combination of both might work the best.
Yeah, usually I think like companies have this kind of like demo, whatever copy of the product.
Yeah, like a demo account where they go on like the demo, like when they're selling, they usually have like a demo account where they show all the features, right?
Yeah.
So we could find that and clone that and then like work from that. I think I can look more into that. I can do that.
Yeah, cool. So let's team up if someone knows anything on this, because I think that would be useful for me as well. I want to learn the product a little bit, and I found it really challenging, like setting up things, like having my like, I don't know, setting up all of the Google accounts, the Kubernetes. It's you need instances for those, and that was a bit challenging.
Yeah, if you set up like a Kubernetes cluster through your Google, like GitLab Google account, right? You're able to spin up like a cluster, no problem. The thing is with that you also need to think of, you know, deactivating it, because like a cluster costs you like $40 a month or something, or 45. And every once in a while, there might be a maintainer of our, you know, our Google platform might do a cleaning sweep, and they might or might not ask you to.
Yeah.
They close it down and, you know, forget about it.
Exactly. Yeah. Cool. All right. If going to the next topic, I've seen that you've been having some useful discussions about the Beautifying UI Epic. So I already talked to Marcel. That was a good idea. Thanks so much for whoever proposed that. And basically, I've seen also Dimitri was pointing that out during the previous meeting that so all of the, like, the goal of the Beautifying UI Epic was to burn down all of them epics to 0. And I think 99% of those are assigned, and like, let's say 95 are completed, right? So pretty much I would say that there is no more work to do. There are a few little ones that are left. So like, if anyone wants to still try that out, I know that Marcel is like open for discussions, but I think like basically that one is done. And for the future, for the similar work like that, I'm not sure if you have heard about the UX Foundation team that is being about to spin up by Christy and others. That would like, the goal of that team is exactly also focusing on this kind of thing. So like working with the components and like focusing on the consistency and all of this small kind of beautifying issues. So that would move in the future to that team. I don't know if that answers all of the questions that you all had in the previous meetings. Sounds good?
Yeah, that sounds good. I'm gonna reach out to Marcel to see if I can, like, if he has more issues like that are not in the Epic, but he thinks there's things that still can be done, then I'm happy to do that. I already merged like.
You did 5, right?
I like 5 or 6, yeah.
Yeah, you are a rock star there. So that's definitely appreciated. Thanks a lot.
Sure.
Awesome. Okay, and kind of like the final note I wanted to ask. Curious, how many of us in the team have used the JDK today for doing some changes? What's experience with that? Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Well, for all the things that I have been doing with the beautifying UI, I have been using GDK like a lot. So, and then like I have a couple of projects that like a couple of like MRs that I review on the GDK. But then I also have another handful that are like on different repos, like Runner lives in a different repo. Visual Review Tool lives in a different repo. So for those, you don't need GDK. But I guess that I use GDK a lot.
Awesome. What about others?
I've used it and set it up, but I don't tend to use it too terribly often. Package doesn't have a lot of front end needs. Most of it is on kind of the API or the kind of back end nature of it. So I haven't had as much need for it.
Cool.
Yeah,
Mike?
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Dimitri, yeah.
I set it up and I used it a little bit. It was more like when I was getting on board, I set it up to see if I could and got in there, and that was fun. But I've been getting lucky lately on the issues where the front end engineers have been making great screenshots and even going so far as to make videos and things like that that have made it less necessary. So may need it, but just seem to be getting by in the last couple of milestones without really needing it too much.
Cool. Dimitri, what about you?
Yeah, I've used it from time to time. I would say in the last half a year, I've been shifting heavily towards review apps and requesting them from developers because I've found that, you know, spinning up the GDK is often a huge time sink. Just losing so much time doing nothing, basically fixing errors that come up with spinning up the GDK every once in a while. And if you don't do it for a couple of, you know, like a week or 1.5 weeks, that means, you know, your libraries are out of date. Your Ruby version might not be up to date anymore. You'll do a GDK update, and what happens is that eventually you find out that your Ruby version is not up to date, so you have to do the process all over again. You know, that alone takes like 20 minutes.
Yeah, GDK breaks so often, like you need to like be like on top of it for it to like work consistently.
Yeah. I see. Cool. Well, the reason why I'm asking is because, like, after our discussion with Marcel, and it's like, I think that's really cool that everyone on the team tried that except me. I didn't yet set it up, but that's on my to-do list. I want to try that feature as well. Well, I want to understand the development experience. I think that's pretty important for us to go through. It would, it would be nice if it would be coming back to that. I think if we see some improvements to do, we should reach out to the engineering teams with the feedback. But I feel like it's very important to have that experience and know what are we talking here about. Because the point that we've been discussing with Marcel, he said that not every designer yet done that, and I was just curious, you know, how are we doing there? So that's great.
I have contributed to the GDK team some stuff like documentation. I wrote some documentation for them in like how to set up your GDK. Like I think they had like a big portion of how to like set up Ruby that wasn't there, so I wrote that for them. And I definitely have seen more areas of help like that, and more things that I could help there. So, I mean, what I'm trying to say is that team could really use some like help from UX folks, just kind of like, hey, think about these, because like they are engineers and they're like thinking these like extremely as an engineer. So like skipping steps, assuming that people already have certain things set up. And I don't think that's true it might be true for many people, but definitely there's a subset of users who are not aware of all these kind of like complexities. So
Mhm.
yeah, I think it's definitely good to like try to go and help them a little bit, even like with just comments of like, hey, you should improve this, you should try to do this, you know.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. As a last note to that, I think it's the point I've been writing out. So CJ, an engineering manager on the Git lead team, has been helping out in this regard to make it a little bit easier to work with the GDK. So he created this merge request that allows you to basically spin up the GDK from the reference point of a merge request ID. So you can just input the ID and it does everything for you. Like it updates the GDK, gets the libraries, does everything basically. But it's very much in beta, and it needs additional users to push this forward. And also we should, in that sense, if we finally get people to do this, push CJ to like, hey, we've noticed these new failures. Can you fix them? And eventually we'll arrive at like a stable status. If we really want to push this, we could get this done within 3 weeks. But it needs dedicated effort and also some availability from ZJ, of course. But I have seen it working, and if it works, it is pretty amazing.
Cool. Well, I definitely will check. Maybe I'll subscribe to trying that. If anyone feels like helping here as well, that would be cool. Sounds like a nice initiative. Nice. Okay, I think this is at the end of the list. We're at the end of the list. Anything else from anyone? Any other topics that we didn't discuss?
I think we kind of like skip the who is out because that's just like putting Ninja who is out. But I think like since it's the end of the year, I think that I saw that Unaria kind of like cancel some meetings, rearrange some meetings. So I think like if someone has like any particular thing about that, I mean, I'm gonna take like a week off on like the Christmas week, but yeah, I don't know. Like, just thought that was worth mentioning because this time of the year, like things are like kind of like getting like pushed around and slowing down. So maybe
Yeah.
there's need to talk about that.